Hello, today is October 7th, Wednesday, 2020, and I'm recording this presentation to be given at IEEE Cloud 2020. And so I'm going to share my screen. Before that, I'm Bhavani Thuraisingham from the University of Texas at Dallas. And so I have exactly 17 minutes to give this presentation. Okay, so my talk is going to be on cloud governance. So for many years, right? So for many of the papers that we see in IEEE Cloud, right, most of them are highly technical, including some of the papers I've published in previous years. So we know that cloud is exploding and cloud services are sort of at the heart of big data technologies. But then how do you manage the cloud? So that is what my talk is going to be. And the whole area is called cloud governance. Okay, so it's about past midnight, actually. It's October 8, 12 past 12. So I've got to stop by 12:30. So I'm going to be looking at the time. Anyway, so my talk is going to be, here are the topics: introduction, developments in cloud and secure cloud, and then the heart of the paper, which is cloud governance. Very briefly, I'll touch upon security as a service. And for the cloud governance, you really need the commitment of the corporation or the organization. So the responsibilities of the corporate officers and the board, and then finally the conclusion. Okay, so what's the cloud? For this community, it's not a new term. It's the NIST definition, National Institute of Standards and Technology. Cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access. It can be rapidly provisioned, released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So over the past decade, the use of cloud computing has exploded, right? So we hear about various types of cloud: public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and so on. Practically, we see that every company, regardless of whether it's a large one, small one, medium, it's taking advantage of cloud services, either by building their own cloud or using public cloud like Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services. Cloud computing based on the service-oriented model and provides many services to its users, including infrastructure, platform, software, data, and so on. Okay. So more recently, cloud is also providing security as a service. So for security operations, we are using the cloud. I'm going to talk about it later. So if you are using cloud to provide security services, then of course the cloud must be secure also, right? Even otherwise, the cloud has to be secure. So clouds being deployed, maybe public clouds like Amazon, private clouds where corporations develop their own clouds, or it could be hybrid clouds, which are the best of both worlds, public and private. In addition, communities may get together, develop their own community clouds, and so on, right? So regardless of what type of cloud you have, security is important. Associated with security is the governance of the cloud. For example, how should the cloud be managed? What are the policies enforced? How is the cloud impacted by the regulations? And who should be responsible for the organization's cloud? Okay. So what are the developments in cloud and cloud security? As I said, we have heard a lot about cloud, right? About data. As stated earlier, the cloud is based on the service-oriented paradigm. So really, it should be the cloud. World has heard a lot about cloud. Okay. There are different types of clouds, as we said, and they are providing infrastructures, platforms, and various software, and even security. More recently, there are additional services that includes data as a service. In other words, the consumers can use the cloud computing power and the platform, databases and programmings, computing power platform, and the software, such as if you want to compute your taxes, so you can get TurboTax from the cloud. In addition, the cloud can also provide consumers with data services, such as providing data for the scientists and engineers for the experiments. So we develop in some of our work, we've done a lot of work on the cloud, funded by a variety of agencies in the United States. So we had a layered architecture. At the bottom, you have the network, virtual network, and then you have the virtual machine monitor. And then you have the Hadoop MapReduce storage system. And then or Spark, on top of that comes the query, the data layer, which is such as Hive and Cassandra and HBase and so on, big data technologies. And then finally you have the application layer for media, social media applications, information sharing, even income tax calculations, whatever applications. But there's also a security layer that provides security features, okay? So we have examined all these layers. So we have designed and developed a secure architecture for the cloud. We have also examined security for Hadoop MapReduce. We have developed applications such as assured information sharing in the cloud. We've also examined standards such as XACML and SAML for identification, authentication, and access control. And we believe that our secure cloud is one of the earliest implementation. We completed some of the implementation around 2010-11 and a more robust implementation around 2013-14. Okay, so securing the data and the processes as well as maintaining the privacy of the individuals, it's become top priority for practically every industry. So most corporations now have strong web presence. Several of them have adopted the cloud. So security and privacy of the cloud has become a major concern. We could encrypt all of the data stored in the cloud, but then once that's cloud data at rest. But what happens when the data is in motion, right? Then once you decrypt the data, the security is lost. So there were some scientists at Stanford and IBM. They came up with this homomorphic encryption that theoretically it is possible to keep the data encrypted and work on the encrypted data. And technologies such as quantum cryptography may offer solutions, and quantum computing in the future. Security is one of the main reasons many corporations are not embracing the public cloud. Okay, and so they are building their private cloud or going with a joint, a hybrid cloud. So what is security as a service? While the cloud itself must be secure, we can use the cloud to provide security services. What does that mean, right? The cloud can provide email worm detection, intrusion detection, identification and authentication, digital forensics, various security functions can be provided to the customers as a service. Remember, secure cloud is not the same as providing security as a service. I just wanted to sort of mention that because people often confuse between the two. We have utilized the cloud in our work for malware analysis and shown that by using the cloud, we enhance the performance. While clouds are useful to provide security as a service, these clouds must be secure. Therefore, securing the cloud and providing security as a service are two different aspects to cloud security. Okay, so now we come to the main topic, and that is cloud governance. What does it mean? The main question is, who is responsible for cloud governance? We've got to make sure that security is provided. We have to make sure that the cloud is up and running, right? So is it the cloud service provider, or is it the responsibility of the cloud service provider and the user or the organization? First, we believe that every CSP, cloud service provider, must have a governance strategy. This would include statements as to whether cloud is compliant with all the various laws. There are HIPAA laws and Sarbanes-Oxley and various other regulations. So cloud must be compliant. What about security and privacy policies? Organization that is using the cloud also has a responsibility towards the governance of the cloud, right? So both parties are responsible. Organization must ensure it's not being careless and deploying attacks on the cloud via malware. So it has to be really careful what it puts on the cloud. Organization must also educate its employees on proper access. Finally, the organization must have a person of authority who manages all the interactions with the cloud service provider. This person could be Chief Information Security Officer, Chief Information Officer, or special person. It could be the Chief Cloud Officer. Okay, so I've been writing series of articles recently, for example, Chief AI Officer, Chief Social Media Officer. So we really need to give that person some authority in order to negotiate contracts and so on for using the cloud. Protecting the cloud against cyber attacks and privacy violations. That's another aspect of cloud governance. In an earlier article, we talked about cybersecurity governance, but these aspects have to be examined for the cloud. Protecting the cloud against cyber attacks and privacy violations should be a top priority for every CSP, cloud service provider, okay, as well as the organization adopting the cloud. Once you put the data in the cloud, then how can you ensure the privacy is protected? Furthermore, how can you prevent your data from being stolen? And then if you are deleting the data in the cloud, how do you know the data is deleted? That the cloud service provider is not just storing your data somewhere, right? So CSP must provide some assurance regarding security and privacy. Clouds must be certified by some trusted authority about the level of security and privacy they provide. Cloud user must also ensure she will abide by all the policies. And then AI, cloud, cybersecurity, all very closely intertwined. So how does it relate to big data or AI strategy? The cloud, cybersecurity, and AI are being integrated. This is because more and more corporations are applying AI techniques and developing products. Some of these approaches, some of these corporations are also using the cloud to execute the AI algorithms for better performance. On the other hand, both the cloud and AI techniques may be attacked, and therefore security of the operation has to be maintained. So cybersecurity, cloud, AI/big data/data science, all have to be closely intertwined, right? So various aspects we talked of for AI governance at a recent conference, I talked about it. And we said there's a need for chief AI officer. So we have to examine the issues involved in AI governance with respect to cloud. Furthermore, the cloud strategy has to be integrated with the AI strategy and the cybersecurity strategy. Okay, what about risks and insurance? The idea is to carry out risk analysis for various computing systems with respect to cyber attacks, and subsequently utilize various risk and mathematical models. How risky is it to use the cloud? More and more companies are now offering cyber risk insurance. So insurance companies are also offering, just like your car insurance and home insurance, cyber insurance. So as corporations adopt cloud services and CSP provides these services, risk analysis for the cloud has to be carried out, and you have to decide what are the insurance amounts. So the cloud has been attacked previously, then of course the insurance premiums go up. From the CSP's point of view, the service provider, risk is not only analyzed with respect to attacks, but also with respect to compliance as well as downtime. For example, if the service provider says, my cloud will be operational 24/7, 365, then what happens if it's down, right? It has to then purchase some additional insurance so that it can fulfill the agreement. The organization using the cloud services may also have to carry out a risk analysis so that it can ensure the quality of its product being sold to its customer. In summary, various risk analysis and insurance models for computing systems have to be explored and possibly adapted for the cloud. Okay, so there are various cloud governance frameworks, okay? So in the paper, this is actually reference 15, but I mistakenly put it as 14. So 14 and 15 actually have to be switched, okay? So anyway, that's a side issue, but something I wanted to point out. When I was preparing the presentation, I noticed it, but all the references are in the paper anyway. So cloud governance frameworks, the open group has come up with various governance issues. Cloud computing governance is a view of IT governance focused on accountability, defining decision rights, balancing benefits of cloud. So the article is a very nice article, okay? So it goes on to, I've got about 5 minutes left. Article examines various other aspects, enterprise architecture, COVID-5, that's another framework. How can it be applied to the cloud? Removed and confusing control objectives. ITIL is another framework for computing systems. How can they be applied to cloud? These frameworks, as well as several others, are proposed in the literature. They have to be examined for the cloud, okay? So another thing is, for secure systems, we do certification and accreditation and evaluation. You can't just build a system and say, my system is secure, right? So for cloud, do you have certification and accreditation and evaluation? So cybersecurity experts have developed various criteria. So we need similar criteria. You can't simply say my cloud is 100% secure, right? So we need similar criteria for the clouds. We need answers to questions such as, is the cloud secure? Does the cloud maintain privacy? Is the cloud compliant with regulations? Does the cloud governance include data governance? Anyway, organizations such as NIST, it's really a good role for them to develop criteria to evaluate the various clouds with respect to security. Okay. And then cloud strategy has to be intertwined with the business strategy. Since most corporations are moving their data and processes to the cloud, cloud strategy has to be integrated with the business strategy. Risks as well as security and compliance issues for the cloud have to be taken into consideration. When you formulate a business strategy, loss of data in the cloud or attacks, that has to be taken into consideration, how the revenues may be impacted. So we need cloud cybersecurity experts to work with business experts. This means CISO, CCO, and Chief Financial Officer must work together. So now I go on to another topic. I've got 4 minutes left, the board. What's the role of the board? Earlier we talked about Chief Information Security Officer, Chief AI Officer. So is that sufficient? Is CISO, can he or she do the work for the cloud? What about cloud officer? We have argued that for AI, we need a Chief AI Officer. So in the same way, for the cloud, should we need, for social media, we said social media officer, right? So for cloud, the whole question is, can we leave it to the CISO or CIO, or should there be a cloud officer? Okay, so that's something, and should the cloud officer, should he or she report to the CIO or to the CEO? Okay, so this is something that we have to figure out. Should we need, but then we cannot expect everyone to report to the CEO, right? So maybe the chief operating officer, cloud officer could report to the chief operating officer. Another question is, should the corporate board have expertise on cloud technologies? We said that they must have expertise on cybersecurity and AI. If companies are using more and more cloud, then yes, the corporate officers should have some expertise so that they can intelligently ask questions to the board of directors. Okay, so nevertheless, due to the increasing importance of the cloud, it would be desirable for the board to have some expertise. Finally, as I mentioned, every corporation must have a cloud strategy. This strategy cannot be a standalone. It has to be intertwined with the other strategies. So the CEO, COO, all these officers have to work together for the benefit of the organization. So my last 2 charts, and I've got 2 minutes left. We have discussed that. I know I rushed because I was only given 17 minutes. So I've got, I think, as I said, 2 minutes. The paper has discussed the governance aspects of the cloud. We cannot, we look at all the technical aspects. What's the point in doing all the best technical, the perfect cloud, but if you cannot evaluate it and accredit it and manage it and so on, right? And if there are risks involved, so governance is equally important in cybersecurity. When you talk about the CISSP, the governance of the cybersecurity system, similarly, the governance of the cloud. Major aspects of organization adopting the cloud must address its cloud strategy, certification, accreditation. We also argue that should we have a CCO for the cloud officer, okay? A chief cloud officer. And then we discussed security as a service. We also said, regardless of whether cloud provides security or what, cloud also must be secure. The cloud strategy of the corporation must also be integrated with its security strategy, and also AI, data science techniques. They all have to be intertwined. AI strategy of the corporation must be integrated with the cloud. We have to make sure that the cloud governance involves clearly identifying the roles and responsibilities of the individuals, as well as integrating the cloud strategy with the corporation's business, AI, security, and possibly social media strategies, okay? So we really have to come up with, I think my time's up, we really have to come up with a comprehensive plan for cloud governance, because more and more companies, the whole premise, more and more companies are migrating to the cloud, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing now. So just to recap, this is a very, very important topic. We focus a lot on the technical aspects, which is important, but we also have to focus on the cloud governance aspects. And if you have any questions, you can please feel free to email me. But of course, I'm planning to be present the paper at the conference. But my email is my first name dot last name at utdallas.edu. Once again, thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Thank you.